Hey, my friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you the main astrological themes for tonight's full moon happening July 29th, 2026. It's an extraordinarily powerful time. A lot of you may have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting some more for something to shift. You may have sensed for a long time things were on the brink of change, but those changes never quite materialized. You never quite knew what they were. This is a time of culmination. It's a time of the collapse of the old you and your old timeline and the birth of the new you and the beginning of your new chapter in a very real, tangible way. Very powerful, very exciting. What I'll go ahead and do now is break this down into a few more digestible themes that might put words to what you're experiencing so that you may go through this transition in a smoother and more graceful way and seize each and every opportunity, which there are plenty in this gateway we are now living through. Theme number one, the collapsing of an old timeline. It's such a stressful thing when you can sense things are about to change in your life. You can start to feel it usually initially, that the alignment you had with you and your life circumstance, the things you've been involved in, the people you've been around, is off, no longer in sync. And then most of us, when this happens, we just wait it out. We think nothing of it. We tell ourselves, who knows? But that feeling, when it remains, it can be unnerving because eventually you know something's off. And then that knowing oftentimes will turn into actual real world examples of this dissonance kind of manifesting. It can come in the form of running into more resistance than usual with something in your life, like a career, your house. In fact, I remember I've moved so many times around the country as I had been on my awakening path for about 20 years. And this would always play out with me with a house. It would all of a sudden, I would just have this knowing that like this subtle sense that we don't belong here anymore. And I would want to ignore that because usually when you have that sense, you don't necessarily know where you belong or what that next step is going to look like. And the idea of not knowing is kind of scary. So I would ignore it. And as I ignored it, life would show me more and more reflections. And with the house, there have been multiple times where bizarre occurrences would happen, like one after the other. For example, this one time we were living in Florida, and I remember all the lights would just start to flicker and burn out. I remember even like little parts of the house, like drawers would fall apart. Like it felt like the house would start to kind of fall apart because we no longer belonged in that house. And the dissonance would create one problem or complication after the other, after the other. And eventually it would be so blatantly obvious that we got to get the heck out of here. There's a very legitimate energetic clash for whatever reason. But even then, sometimes you don't know, where do I go? We didn't plan on moving. And it would be kind of stressful, but it would be in your face. And anyways, what I'm saying is eventually you move. Things happen, new information comes in, new ideas spring into your mind, and you put them into action, and you're in a new home, or you're in a new career, or you've made some changes in your relationships or your business or whatever. And that's what I'm talking about here. We're beyond those initial stages that I mentioned, and it's time you might find yourself changing, moving on, going into the next chapter, even if you still don't know exactly what it's going to look like. None of us ever do. but it is indeed a time of moving on. And there comes a point where there's so much momentum mainly of your growth. The person you are continually uncovering as you work through your blockages and issues and release the past conditioning and trauma and pain. It makes way for more and more of your spirit to have a presence in your body and in your personality, in your thinking and your life. And eventually that presence is so strong that change becomes inevitable. But this is the good kind of change. Even if there are things you have to let go of and loops you have to kind of close, even if some of those ones make you a little sad. You know, my best friend and I, for example, we are making some drastic changes to a business we've had for a very long time. And on one hand, it's long overdue. On the other hand, it's sad. On the other hand, it's extremely exciting for both of us. But it's time. It's time for us. And you might find it's time for you in some way, shape, or form within your life. But the good news is when this finally starts to happen, a lot of the questions you may have had begin to be answered. And you realize why things had to kind of play out the way they did. You realize that life is not meant to be clung to out of fear and safety. You realize life is all about change. And when you do the inner work, even though sometimes it doesn't appear as such, the change is always positive. Whatever heaviness you might feel in your life right now, that your mind tells you you're not ready to let go of, I promise you there's some other version of that that's lighter and better and so good that you don't even believe it's possible. A lot of times you don't know how much work you've done. You don't know how good your life can become. But that presence of your spirit that you've uncovered and allowed to strengthen itself will show you. Whether you surrender willingly or you kick and scream the entire way, I've done both. Nonetheless, you're moving into that new chapter and you're going to love it. It's going to be great. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't even really consider certain options because we just don't think it's possible. But life is magical. You are a magician. Reality is malleable. And there are forces beneath the surface that you are connected to, that are assisting you and helping you and guiding you, even with the problems, even with the breakdown, even with those bouts of confusion, all serving to align you with this new timeline that's going to knock your socks off. Number 2, stepping into sovereign leadership. Not necessarily literally for all of you, obviously, but a lot of you in some way will realize you've been playing small. And you'll realize you don't need to play small. You realize you didn't know how powerful you really are to stand on your own 2 feet and to manifest your desires into reality. But once you realize that, you might find that you will naturally gravitate away towards any unnecessary pillars of support that are outdated, any safety nets you no longer need, training wheels that once served you but are now slowing you down will start to fall away as you rise into this newfound potential that's always been there. What calling have you been avoiding because you didn't believe you had what it takes? You didn't believe you were quite ready? What have you known in your heart for some time wants to be expressed, created even, that you've been putting off because of a lack of clarity, lack of confidence, too much going on, not the right time. Now is the time where life is going to kick you out the door. Not in a mean way, but because it's long overdue and you're ready. And on one hand, it's neat when you go off and you get to do the thing you've been wanting to do that you didn't think you could do. Because, of course, experiencing that thing is fine and nice. But it's also very unique when you get to witness yourself surprising yourself. When you get to see yourself doing something you didn't think was possible. That recognition, that self-discovery is absolutely priceless. And I honestly think that's kind of the game we're playing here on Earth. I think that's the whole point. Otherwise, why would we come here? Why would we willingly come to such a difficult difficult habitat with such a difficult psychology that kind of imprisons us and keeps us fairly disconnected from where we came, which was far better. The heavens, whatever, the higher planes of reality where there was more love and unity and connectedness and maybe less or even no fear and pain and suffering and anger and hatred, all these things. And we come here and we dive right in and we're stuck in it. Why would an eternal spirit that had it all choose that? The only thing that makes sense to me is because there's something very special with experiencing the illusion that you've lost it and then step by step making your way back to the light from the darkness. Each step on this stairway to heaven is an accomplishment. It gives us a new perspective on the light as well as the darkness. It even allows us to have an appreciation for the darkness, because going into the darkness is what allows us to make our way up those stairs. And in that way, it fuels us and it serves us. And it's one heck of a ride, very exhilarating. You'll have to forgive me, I drank ayahuasca 3 nights in a row just recently, so I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. Practically speaking, what I'm trying to say is that it's time to move up that staircase. It's time to do the thing you've been putting off because you are ready, and this full moon is going to equip you with the awareness so that now you know you're ready. And even more so, life will even give you an opportunity to do that. Theme number 3, nothing is hiding anymore. And this is good. Any unspoken words, anything you've been harboring, anything that's been weighing on your mind between you and other people, you and yourself, it's going to be glaringly obvious to you so that you can no longer hide, because it's no longer allowed to be in your reality. Suppression is becoming impossible. We are waking up too fully. And you might find that while for a time you were able to bite your tongue, you were able to ignore what you saw, no longer. And it's just this bombardment of awareness and truth for us to deal with. And it can be messy sometimes, but between you and other people, there might be some messes in your life you have to clean up. But what I found is that when you finally just accept that, there's no way around it. The only way is through it. Then a lot of times things can piece themselves together and rearrange in a pretty quick way. I remember, for example, years ago, going back to another example when I knew it was going to be time to move. By this time, I had kids, I had careers, I had a whole life, a whole identity built up around my living situation. So when this feeling it was time to move came on, I resisted for a very, very, very long time, actually. And I held on to the bitter end. But there came a point, like now, a culmination point, where I just knew it was impossible to stay any longer. But once I was like forced to accept that, and I realized, okay, there's only one direction to go, and it's forward. And now all of my mental energy was going towards how can I do that? Instead of how can I stay? How can I avoid? How can I wait? It was like, okay, let's do this. And once that happened, so many things happened so quickly and so smoothly. In a very short span of time, for example, my family and I, we were able to sell our home, sell almost all of our belongings, close down not one, but two businesses, and completely uproot ourselves from a very multifaceted life circumstance and move on to the next chapter in a very, very, very short span of time. But even more so, instead of being extremely exhausting and chaotic and challenging as I anticipated, as my mind tried to wrap itself around all the different things that had to get done, when you're moving into greater alignment, a lot of these things will happen and fall away and complete and resolve and arrange in like a perfect synchronistic way. So the transition was both quick and also smooth. For example, at the time we put our house on the market, it was a tough time to sell a house, and we sold it in one weekend, where many people are sitting on houses for months. Things can happen very smoothly. The universe wants you to be where you belong. It is us and our resistance and our fears that make things difficult. But once your mind sees there's no choice but forward, and you just allow yourself to kind of let go and from clinging to the shore, the river can take you upstream very quickly. But along the way, there may be conversations to be had. There may be things to express. There may be things to sort out, things you have to do on a practical level. But it's all going to be asking that you do that. This is an opportunity for like a fresh, clean start. And the less you can drag from the past into your new timeline, the better. And this is a time where it's like everything's out in the open. And it's up to you to speak up. It's up to you to make the change. It's up to you to make a choice and to clear away the past, because you're going to be moving faster and faster in this new timeline. And you don't need the training wheels anymore. You don't need some of the things you thought you need. And the more of it you can deal with in this sort of like window of opportunity, the better. And then finally, I think the most beautiful thing of all, because right now what I've discussed is about like your own personal path, my own personal path, our own personal timelines, collapsing and opening up and rearranging for us. There's also a deepening taking place. In fact, I believe maybe even the source of all this change and transformation. And that deepening is coming more into contact with true compassion, patience, service, love, and unity. These are spiritual possibilities. These are possibilities for those who are on the spiritual path. But there can be a long road to get there, a lot of our stuff to move through. So it can take some time. But the energy on the planet now is so potent, such a high frequency that we are all kind of immersed in right now, creating an unprecedented opportunity to move through a lot of it all at once almost, very quickly. Dramatic spiritual progress is possible at this time. And the result is, yeah, a better lifestyle, an improved timeline, all these nice things, but even better than that is this greater connection to love. And for that to happen, sometimes it can be taking an even closer look at yourself than you had in the past, and really looking and seeing how we are all the same. We are all struggling. All the things out there that bother you, that about people, you have some version of that too. And you might be seeing that. You might be seeing more of your shadow right now, more of how your unconsciousness is affecting others. And it's a big dose of truth to swallow sometimes, a big slice of humble pie. That's exactly what we need. What humans need is to know that they're not special, that we're all special, that we all deserve happiness, we all deserve love. And even the ones out there just creating chaos and suffering for other people, they're serving you as well. They're showing humanity as a whole that this is going on. What are we going to do about it? Humanity, which you are an extension of, is sick. And unless we knew that, we wouldn't bother to lift a finger to do anything about it. And the deeper you go into your own pain and your own self, the more you can understand how people can even get to that point. And instead of resenting them, you can have compassion for them and pray that they also see the light. They also see it's possible to not have to be that way. But who's going to show them that if not you? We're seeing an intensification of an ego running rampant. And that's allowing people like you and me and anybody to see, oh, I have that. I have a little bit of that in me as well. And with that, we can become better people, more compassionate, more tolerant, more loving. And we can be an example for them, an option at the very least. We can use what you're seeing, whatever it is you see you don't like, you can use that as fuel for your consciousness to expand even further so you can be even a brighter beacon of light for the world and sort of tip the scales and balance the energy. But the people who are going on this path have a lot of love to look forward to, a lot of peace, a lot of goodness, goodness. That doesn't even require life to be a certain way. You know, for example, one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had my entire life didn't involve ayahuasca or kundalini or meditation or anything like that. It was one night I stayed up late drawing a birthday card for my son. I'm not even that good at drawing, but I stayed up and I put a lot of energy into it. And I just knew he was young but smart enough to appreciate it. And the whole time I was drawing, I was just thinking of him. I didn't care that I was losing sleep. I didn't care that he'd probably lose it in a couple of days. I just felt drawn to do something for someone I love. And I realized that that's what life is all about. That's the most enlightened I ever felt in my entire life. Doing something genuinely good for another person for no other reason, but just to brighten up their day even a little bit. And that feeling I'm trying to kind of point at is more present now. But it comes at the rate you can integrate your own shadow and accept yourself and love yourself and let yourself off the hook and have patience for yourself and not distract yourself by pointing fingers. I didn't really realize how far we could get on this journey of transformation. I've been doing this for 20 years and my mind is blown away by what I'm seeing now is possible, and not just with me, but with others too. And I hope you feel this too. I hope you do at some point. And with that said, thank you all for watching. I gotta go. Didn't plan on filming a video. I just got back from Costa Rica last night, and it's been a long but beautiful 8 days. I'm gonna rest, but I realized today's the full moon, so I figured I'd get this out to you guys in case it may serve you. And thank you for watching, and I wish you well. God bless.